Brent, you mentioned creative financing. What should folks consider when they're buying a property either subject to or seller's financing, which they're definitely very unique in themselves?
The generic answer is it's always going to come down. Does this deal make sense? Do these numbers make sense? I always like to say, what is the story, right? Like when you look at the numbers, what are the numbers? What's the story that the numbers tell, right? So I honestly don't buy very rarely do we buy on terms, right, with seller financing, but we sell a ton with owner financing on the back end, right? So, in terms of that, Chris, though, I do recommend if you guys are out there and you're doing deals, and you're doing your own marketing, you're negotiating with sellers, you always want to ask that question, right? If they're willing to finance back to you, right? And this is where it's helpful to, network, read as much as you can, and educate yourself, because there's ways that you can talk to them. You may have landlords, for example. This is a great conversation you can have if you, ask them, hey, are they interested in learning about a little tax loophole where they can avoid all the gains from selling the property? And one of the ways they can do that is with long-term financing with you, okay? There's ways that you can structure these conversations. So you always want to ask these questions. Doesn't mean they're always going to be there, but you always want to have a plan A, which may be hard money, plan B if you got a private money lender, plan C, a local bank, and then sometimes that seller financer deal does come through. As a matter of fact, we bought a property almost 2 years ago, and I was terrified at first because it was right when COVID was coming on. It was 30 acres of a rundown, beat-down subdivision. Some of you may have seen me share this on Facebook, and the grass was up this high. It looked like a third world country. And I got nervous, asked for a 30-day extension, almost backed out, had a just, heart-to-heart with the seller and said, hey, I may back out of this deal because things are going on in the world, and the deal kind of scares me already, even though we're getting it really cheap. And he's like, you know what? He's like, I would think you're crazy if you weren't a little bit nervous. So we ended up having good rapport, and I said, let me ask you a question. It's not going to affect me, but would you be interested in, carrying a note on this thing for a while? And he said, what would that look like? ... So he eventually, we bought it for $400. He carried back a $250,000 seller finance note at 5% interest. So it doesn't ever hurt to ask, because you never know. And I'm still in that loan with this guy today, and he's asking how he can reinvest with me in some other deals.
So Eddie, you've talked about that two-prong approach, the kind of the 1-2 punch with the cash offer, and then doing the counter with the owner's financing.
That's
how does
right.
that work?
It's very effective, and I just can't even tell you guys how effective this technique is. The best way to describe these things is just do an example. Let's say you're in front of the client and you offer $100,000. And first of all, you don't ever offer $100,000. Those that know me, you always offer $100,290, $100,460. Always weird numbers. 10 on the back of the number. But just for the example, say you offer them $100,000, and you get a pretty hard reject, and they just draw a line in the sand. I'm not going to sell this house for less than $125,000. And then there's a million different combinations you can throw out there, and you said, well, for cash, I'm $100,000, but I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll pay you the $125,000. I'll pay $125,000. I'll pay you $1,250 a month for 100 months. Or you can say, I'll pay you $5,000 down, then I'll pay you $1,200 a month for 100 months. A million ways to work the math where it equals $125,000. Now let me tell you, the honest to God truth, almost never do they take the owner finance terms, which you just offered them for you as an interest-free loan if you didn't run the numbers in your head. There was no interest in those numbers. But this is what it does. It makes your cash offer look better. It makes I say this a lot, it takes the sting off the low cash offer. And you didn't paint them in a corner. And it is extremely effective. And so many times they go back to the 100 cash that they just gave you the hard reject because they really don't want the $5,000 down and the $1,200 a month for 100 months. I'm telling you, it's effective and it works. And I call it the 1-2 punch.
Yeah, we did that. It was a lake house in Livingston. We've already sold this one. We didn't want it. Like, we got it under contract, started doing with the project it was going to take. It was just, I really didn't want it. So we went back and we were just completely straight up with them. It's like, look, it's just not going to make sense. The only way it would make sense is we had a 30 grand reduction in the cash offer or the owner's finance. And they didn't even question cash offer. And now, at that point, I was like, man, should I ask 50? 50 off?